And we are live. Welcome to Wilfred Stories, ladies and gentlemen. You know, sometimes we do things thinking it would just be a harmless and innocent fun, not knowing that the fun we had would become our worst nightmare. I didn't know it would turn out like how it had turned. I didn't even get a warning, but either way, it became my worst nightmare. You know when you have friends that love partying a lot and you are somehow like them. We enjoyed having fun and socializing, but that led me into hot waters. I didn't have a backup plan. I had thought my boyfriend would be gone for a couple of days or a week like he used to do, but he surprised me. And that time I didn't even remember what had happened the previous night, but whatever it was that happened really ruined things for me. They say, fear alcohol because it will make you lose your mind. I never took that advice from my mother when she once told me, but I trusted my single friends. Now look where all that had got me into. Alcohol made me lose the love of my life. If there is anyone who also went through what I had gone through, please advise me on how you recovered and dealt with everything in the right way. Let me tell you what had occurred. So my boyfriend, male 28, and I, female 28, met at Howard University a few years back. That time I was still a freshman at Howard University. Mind you, I came from a low-class standard of living environment. I had gotten a scholarship to do business administration and management. I loved learning about businesses because I had a dream of becoming an owner of a big investment company. By the grace of God, my dream almost came true. So Colin and I first saw each other in the freshers orientation. He was coming from an elite class. His father was a well-known business tycoon, but no one knew because Colin was not like those high and mighty rich students who thought they were children of the almighty Lord and Savior somehow. I didn't have any friends and I didn't want any because I had come to study, not to form friendships. 2 days later, during lunch break, I was at the cafeteria sitting alone. You know when you are a fresher and you are not used to or know anyone at the campus. It gets lonely and somehow boring. So as I was having my lunch, Colin came to my table and asked if the space that was available was taken. I gave him a go-ahead to take a seat. He started by introducing himself, of course, and told me that he had seen me during the orientation, and to my surprise, we were doing the causes that were almost the same, and just that he was in business law class. Since that day, he started coming to where I was during lunchtime. We would share a bit about our studies, until it became a regular thing that during lunchtime we would spend lunch together. Colin was a handsome guy. He had the brains, which made him more handsome. He was what girls call an IT guy. So we became friends after like a week of spending time with each other, and he would sometimes help me with my studies. I appreciated his brains a lot, but he was somehow a distraction. Our friendship went on for 6 months. During summer holidays, that time I was going to go home to Fredericksburg, Virginia. To tell the truth, I didn't want to go home. Home was depressing. My parents were going through a divorce, so there was really nothing serious about going home. I missed Colin a lot, even though we would communicate most of the time. He lived an hour and some minutes away from where I was staying, so you would think how bored I was because I couldn't even make a plan to meet up with him at least. Was I already falling for the guy? The summer holidays felt like a lifetime. I wanted to go back to campus. At least at the student accommodation that I was living in, I had some privacy. I appreciated the scholarship that I had got because it had covered all my tuition and accommodation fees, though I had to work really hard to keep it and not do anything illegal or stupid that would take it away. Colin was always busy with whatever he was busy doing. I would somehow get hurt when a day ends without me communicating with him. I also had a thought that maybe he was spending time with his girlfriend. I wished time would fly and holidays would end. Things were bitter and sour at home. My father had moved out and my mother was, I don't know how I would put it, but she was not my loving and caring mother, so you would understand how much the tension was affecting me. It was bad. I was just grateful that my studies were not affected due to the pressure I was feeling at home. The fact that I still needed both my parents under one roof was hurting me to a point that I needed friends. Well, more like I needed Colin to be my destruction during that time. My mother was slowly sinking deep into depression. I then vowed to myself that I would never get married, no matter how promising my relationship would look like. I would rather die alone than be married. A week later, I received a call from Colin asking for my address. I was angry at him that he had ghosted me for the whole week. Then he came back and asked for my address. Mind you, that time we were not even dating, but I was just angry at him. I think I was somehow jealous because whoever he was spending his time with got a chance to be with him every day, and I was home being patient with my depressed mother and our depressing home situation. So I sent him my address codes, and to my surprise, he came. A part of me was happy to see him, but another part was just angry at him for ghosting me for the whole week. Was I jealous and insecure? I mean, I wanted to have the guy all to myself. I needed him more than my mother needed me. So when he arrived, I bursted him. I don't know if it was because I had missed him, or it was the fact that I was going through a depressing phase at home. He was a gentleman enough to take me out of that depressing environment. From then, we started going out a lot. He was the best friend I had ever had. He knew which buttons to turn on whenever I was not feeling okay. He became my pillar of strength and my refuge. He had explained his reason for ghosting me for the whole week, but I didn't believe him. My mind kept telling that he was with his rich girlfriend. I loved him. I know the fact that I got jealous whenever he would go AWOL would make me very angry. But I didn't think he was actually feeling the same way because he was not saying anything, but I would notice his actions. It made me happy whenever he would spend time with me. I loved being around him. I was so taken, but I couldn't confess my feelings to him because I was scared of rejection, and I would always get thoughts of him telling me that he had a girlfriend back at home. As we were spending more time with him, I noticed that he was not those high and mighty guys who live in the elite class areas. He was down to earth, and he respected everyone, which made me fall in love with him more. A few months later, we went back to university. I was the happiest human being ever. I don't know if maybe it was the fact that I was not going to be home, or the fact that I would be seeing Colin almost every day. I think I had a very dangerous love crush on him, or I just loved him so much. As we were back from holidays, we spent most of the time together, going through our modules or going out exploring Washington. It was always epic having to spend each and every moment with him. A week later, he came to my residential accommodation. The girls I was living with were so forward to the fact that I discovered that one of them had a crush on Colin, but I managed to put her in her place. I was already jealous and didn't want to share Colin with anyone. So when he came, he asked me to accompany him somewhere, only to find out that he was actually taking me to the park. He wanted us to have a picnic there, and then he confessed his feelings for me. My heart was beating fast because I had just told myself that whatever I had felt inside, it would be my secret. I also told him that I had felt the same way, but I couldn't tell him that I had felt like how I felt the first time we started being friends. I couldn't degrade myself like that, no ways. So I just agreed to be his girlfriend and everything was settled. The crush that I had was replaced by me being Colin's girl. I was so excited. Time passed, our relationship was great, and it was like we were made for each other, you know. Another thing, I had become friends with the two girls I was living with. They were not as bad as I had thought. It was just that they loved going out whenever they had time. They made sure to enjoy their young life. They were forward but cool. So one day they had invited me to go with them to one of the clubs not far from our place. I was a bit skeptical at first, but I eventually went with them. Mind you, I had never drank any alcohol or been to clubs before, so it was my first time and I enjoyed every moment of it. We had so much fun. We drank from cocktails to shots until we were out of it. I couldn't even speak to Colin that night because I had left my phone back in the student apartment. I knew that he was going to get angry at me for going out without telling him, the worst part of leaving my phone behind. The following day, he came to my place looking livid. I knew that he was angry at the fact that I had to go to a nightclub and didn't tell him. He told me that he didn't want me associating myself with the girls that I live with. I didn't understand why he didn't want me to associate with people that I live with because he was not always with me. And I needed some time outside the apartment to find myself. I mean, why would I coop myself inside the apartment each and every time as if I was sick or I was in my old age? Our relationship had ups and downs like any other relationships. During exams, we didn't get enough time to spend together as he had to focus more on his book, his words, not mine. 6 months passed and we were approaching the winter season, my favorite. One day, Colin was writing his last exam paper, meaning I hadn't talked to him since the day before. I missed him so much that time I had long done with mine. I was dragging home. I remember when it was December and most families were happy that they would be celebrating together and preparing together for Christmas. On the other hand, I didn't know if it was sunset or sunrise because my home situation was depressing. There was nothing to celebrate. My mother really loved my father, and for my father to just find another woman to replace mom and divorce her on top of that really did a number on mom. So on Christmas Day, I was having a very gloomy and dull day. My mom and I had planned to celebrate it alone. I had missed my family, but I guess not all wishes were meant to come true, right? So that day, Colin called me and asked me to get ready. When I told him that I was not in the mood and in the right state of mind to go out, he threatened to drag me out of my room. LOL. Can you imagine? So I obeyed and told my mother that I was going out. It really hurt my heart to see my mother going through a depressing period like that, and I didn't even know how to help her. I would have gotten her a good therapist. Maybe she would have become better, but I couldn't afford it, and it really broke my heart not to be able to help her. That day, I was really surprised when we got to the elite neighborhood with Colin. I had no clue of where he was taking me, but I trusted him, so I didn't ask any questions. I got the shock of my life when I found out that I was actually meeting his family. My heart was beating like a drum. On the other hand, I was really angry at him for ambushing me to meet his parents. He should have talked to me first before making such a drastic decision for me, you know. His family was really warm and welcoming, from the children to the elders. Everyone was just welcoming. I loved them. I wished my family was also like them, you know. But at least Colin was there with me to make sure that I was not feeling out of place. I mean, they were living in the elite neighborhood. They looked like a family who were afforded compared to my background, and it somehow made me feel like I didn't belong no matter how much they had tried to cheer me up. But I was not really comfortable. Our relationship was going smoothly. We were so much in love with each other. As much as he didn't like me hanging out with my roommates, he didn't have a choice but to accept it, because he was not always with me. And I had found out that his father was retiring from their family business, so when the father retires, he would have to step in as an elder son since his siblings were still young to take over the business. Since then, we didn't get much time to spend together because he had to focus on his schoolwork and his dad's business, since he was training him for his retirement. I missed my man. I had missed everything about him, from his touch, kisses, and everything else. I had missed my best friend, as much as he would steal some time to be with me, but I felt like it was not enough. I wanted all of him. Was that too much to ask for? Whenever I complained to him about missing him, he would always remind me that he was doing what he was doing for us, so we could spend our lives together, and that everything is over his control. Some of the things he had said, I didn't understand them, like he was doing whatever he was doing for us. My mind kept asking, if he didn't date me or became friends with me, who would tell those excuses because we met at the university, meaning he went to university to study so he can take over his father's business. We would fight a lot about his time management and the lack of attention, but I knew that love was there. I would be lying if I said Colin loved me less. That guy loved me. He loved me for me, you know. He never judged me or looked down on me because I was coming from a lower class than him. Instead, he would always give me guidance and motivation to work hard so I can live the dream that I had, which is to take my mother out of the depressing state she was going through. Anyway, another year passed and Colin graduated from university. I was so proud and happy for him. The proud smile his father had during the graduation ceremony made me wish that my father was also still in my life. I was going to graduate in the next 2 months. My mother was going to be present, but I needed both my parents to be there. Ever since my parents' divorce was finalized, it was like my father made sure to lose all his connection and contact with me because I could no longer reach him whenever I called or checked his socials. I needed someone to tell me that they were proud of me and my achievements. My mother was there, yes, but it was not the same. You know when they say female children get along very well with their fathers and male children love and get along well with their mothers? That was how it was, as much as I got along with my mother, but it was not the same as the connection I had shared with my father. So after Colin's graduation, it was confirmed that my man was indeed taking over his father's business. Another thing he had negotiated with me was that I should move in with him or move to the apartment he was living in since it was safer. I knew that he didn't want me to move in with him or move to his apartment because of my safety, but it was because he didn't want me to stay any longer with the roommates I was living with. Well, he was kind of jealous that I had formed a friendship with them and they were too much of extroverts. He would tell me that my friends were chaotic and a bad influence to me. I didn't understand his jealousy and insecurities because he was not always with me, you know. I am a girl. I get lonely and bored at times whenever he is not around, so my roommates were a great distraction to me. They always managed to lighten up my mood since he was in training to be a CEO of his father's business. He was too attached to that taking over his father's business thing. He sometimes forgot that he had a girlfriend that also needed his attention and affection, but he was not even there to give that to me. Then he got the nerve to choose who to and not to have fun and hang out with. I won't say he was a control freak, but he was kind of controlling at times, and I didn't like it. It was not like we were married or something, so he had no right to choose friends for me, right? Even though that got me into serious trouble. 1 year later, my relationship with Colin was a roller coaster. 1 minute we were fine. He was the most loving, caring, and affectionate boyfriend ever. Then the next he was gone, saying he was going on business trips. I would sometimes not understand the sudden business trips that would take him weeks, if not months, to come back. And when I asked about his trips, he would tell me that he wanted to expand his father's business. So in order to do that, he should travel a lot to meet up with the investors. Okay, if he had to travel a lot to those business meetings, then why wouldn't he take me with him? I mean, I was his girlfriend, right? And he was serious about me, so why was it so hard for him to take me to those business trips with him? Because he knew that I would always make time for him and support him with anything. I somehow felt like he was stringing me along and he had a girlfriend that he was taking to business trips. I mean, what other reason you would have for not taking your girl wherever you were going? I didn't understand how these male species think and operate sometimes, and I was failing to understand seriously. But now I do perfectly. Males are one selfish species. They always expect you to deliver or meet their needs whenever they want to, but fail to do the same when the tables have turned. Another thing that had made me suspect that he had another girlfriend was because he didn't even show up to my graduation. Mind you, I had supported him throughout everything, even on his graduation day. I was there cheering on him, but he failed to do the same to me. I was really sad and angry that day because both males that were in my life were not present on my big day. Well, I shouldn't be counting my father because whatever happened, him not showing up was bound to happen, so it was not surprising. But the person I share my desires and love with decided to cancel on me on the last day. I was really looking forward to celebrating my big day with him. Yes, my mother was there cheering for me, but it wasn't the same. I needed Colin there. I wanted him there, but he was on a business trip. During that year, I had started a job in an investment company, name withheld due to personal reasons, as a financial accountant. And as expected, Colin was not there to celebrate any of my achievements with me, but my girls were. I remember that time he came back a week after I had started the job. He just came with lousy excuses and roses. The job was a great distraction for me. It helped me to not think a lot about Colin. Yes, we were communicating and seeing each other from time to time, but it was no longer the same. Even our intimate moments were no longer the same, though I appreciated the little time he gave me, but they were not enough. So I resorted to spending time with my girls most of the time, going out, having a few drinks, and socializing. Well, I was not a person who liked socializing, but the more I went out with the girls, got introduced to the alcohol kind of fun, I learned to socialize with strangers. If my boyfriend was present at all times, I wouldn't have time to even go out and socialize with strangers because he would be there with me. As time went on, I got tired of always having to beg Colin to get time and spend time with me. Everyone gets tired, right? As much as I had been patient because I knew and hoped that he loved me, and he would never do something that would jeopardize our relationship, so I held on and trusted. But then sometimes love alone is not enough. That was what I had realized after I had been patient with Colin for a very long time. After I had had enough, I tried to break things off with Colin because it was like I was in this love and relationship thing alone. My heart longed for him, but he was never there. The worst part, I had even moved in with him thinking that maybe since I had moved in, he would make time for me, but things were still the same. Well, not the same, but they got worse. When I told him that I couldn't carry on like how he was treating me anymore, I was tired and fed up. That was the time where he tried to mend our relationship. He started making time for me even though his endless business trips were there, but he tried his best. As much as that was what I had wanted, but I had to take a break from him, so he could also get his own time to think things through and think deeply on what he wanted because his "I love you" were no longer making any difference to me. A few months later, I went back home. Home was better than the last time. It was less depressing and saddening because my mother had decided to take a stand and take charge in her life. I was proud of her and the changes she had made to herself. I had gotten my mother back. I even forgot that there was actually a person who existed and called himself my father. Even God knew that no matter how much I had missed my father and how much I had needed him in my life, but if he were to come back into mine and my mother's life, he would regret the day he said "I love you" to my mother, only for him to make a fool out of her, then ditched her like a used condom. During those few months, I had broken up with Colin Wright, but the poor guy didn't take the breakup seriously, because I would sometimes find him home when I get back from work, or get notified by my colleagues that there was someone who was looking for me. I couldn't give him a chance to even explain himself because he had that chance when I was still living with him. So when I moved out, he realized that he had a girlfriend, and he decided to act like a crazy person and harass me at my home and my workplace. Some men have no brains. Can someone tell me how you all deal with brainless male species? So after months of Colin begging for another chance, one of my girls was going to have a birthday party at one of the clubs. Obviously, I was invited. I needed to go out and remove my mind from what had been going on that week, so it was going to be a great distress treat for me. My heart wanted me to take back Colin, but my mind was telling me that once I got back with him, he would do a second season of what he was doing. Then I would be lonely again. I loved my man so much, and I knew he loved me, but when it came to time and its management, he was failing dismally. I didn't know if he was doing all that to please his father, or I don't know how I can even put it, but what he was doing would push any woman in his life away because it was sickening and cannot be tolerated. But as time went by, I decided to give him another chance, as he had promised to prove himself that we would change and make time for me. You know, when the heart wants what it wants, no matter how much you try to listen to the mind, but when the heart has spoken, it should be listened to and obeyed. So I got back with Colin, and it was the greatest choice I had ever taken. He changed, you know. He became the man I had always wanted and always begged him to be. It was like it was our first time dating. I knew that me and Colin were made for each other and were made to be together. Well, that was what I had thought. I moved back with him. He was the best boyfriend ever and the greatest man I could ever ask for. I had even forgotten about the times he was not giving me his time and not around. I had missed him so much, but what I had missed more on him was our intimate moments. Those were the best and greatest moments of all time. If I were to be asked to go back to that one thing that Colin had provided and make sure to enjoy it like it was my last time, that would be our intimate moments. Every moment of it was always on fire and satisfaction. The girl that I was friends with once called me and told me that she was hosting her birthday party at the club that weekend. So I was like, why not? Colin had gone on a business trip, back at it again. He had told me that he was going to be gone for the whole week. I was used to it, so it was not some kind of an issue or a big deal to me. Well, as much as he was trying to mend all those months we were apart, but it was bound to happen that he went back to his old self, the father's puppet, and it didn't make any difference. So I went to the party, and as expected, it was a blast. It was epic to a point that I didn't even think about Colin. I had forgotten that he even existed. I had so much fun. So there were some guys that were there. Apparently they had invited themselves into a party, and the girls didn't have any problem. The more the merrier, right? My boyfriend was not available, so why not spend the night with the strangers because we were having so much fun? Did I commit a crime for doing that? The guys suggested that we went to the nearest hotel to continue with the party. Well, one of them knew the birthday girl, so I didn't have a problem moving the party with them to the hotel. When we got to the hotel, the party continued, and we had so much fun. I noticed a familiar face in that hotel, and I think it was one of Colin's friends, even though I was really out of it, but I wouldn't have mistaken that face no matter how intoxicated I was. The party went on till the following day. Everyone was out of it, but something happened that night, and I do not remember it because I was really blackouted. The following morning, I woke up hoping that I would see my friends so we could all go home together. But to my surprise, I woke up with two strangers in bed. The worst part was that these strangers were butt naked. I panicked thinking I had been molested, but when I touched myself, it showed that nothing was done to me. So I just didn't waste any time. I took whatever I had come with and requested a cab home since we had left our cars at the club and rode in one of the guys' cars. I tried calling the girls, but none of them dared to answer my calls. I needed answers on what had occurred that night. You know, I was so stressed because my mind was blank. I had a very bad hangover, and when I got home, I found Colin back from his business trip. I had thought he would be gone for a week, but I guess whatever he went to do didn't take too much time. When I got home, Colin was, I don't know, a mix of stress and anger. I don't know how I would put it, but he was in between the two. Mind you, I didn't even notify him that I was going to a party because I knew that he was not going to allow me to go, so I went to the party without his knowledge and permission. The minute I got inside the house, he threw his phone at me. I got so confused about why he would throw his phone at me. I am sure every girl knows that if your man throws their phone on you, it always means nothing but trouble, so I knew there and then that I was indeed in trouble. He asked me why I had embarrassed him like the way I did. I didn't know what to say, so to get a clear picture of what he was referring to when he said I had embarrassed him, I opened his phone, and to my surprise, the phone had a video of me dancing like a hooker in the club. Another video was me going hand in hand with one of the strangers from the previous night. I was super embarrassed myself. I was really disappointed in myself. I had thought it would be an innocent party, with no videos or pictures, but I guessed wrong, and my boyfriend got them. I didn't even know where he got them because I only knew his friend at the hotel only. So I was sure that he was the one who sent Colin the picture from the hotel and took a video to show how intoxicated I was. Colin was in a mixture of hurt, disappointment, and anger. That time, there was no way I was going to deny anything because the proof was before us. He was disappointed at the fact that he had thought I would behave since he had said he was going on a business trip, but apparently he was not on a business trip. I got confused when he told me that, so I waited for him to elaborate more because I myself was starting to get angry that he had made me a fool and said he was going on a business trip. Was he stalking me? For real, everything was confusing until he took out a box in his trouser pockets and told me that he was testing me. He wanted to see if I was faithful when he was not around, just as I had appeared to be when he was around. And it turned out that I would do anything to avoid being bored and alone, not even thinking about the consequences of my behavior. He was disappointed at the fact that I had acted like a hooligan, like a person who didn't have a boyfriend in clubs. He was really hurt, and it really hurt me that I had disappointed him like that. So he broke things off with me and told me that he wanted to make me his wife the day before, but after he had seen the videos, it showed that I was not ready for any commitments. I had never cried like that in my life. I felt like my heart was being torn into small pieces. There was nothing to fix, and I would have said, or any apology I would have preached for him to make him forgive me. Oh my God, what have I done? A single mistake that happened in one night cost me the love of my life. My life just took a drastic turn within a split second. It was supposed to be a great evening in the club, and it all turned out to be the worst nightmare. There was nothing else to do either than going back home. I messed up real bad. Do you think it was the best decision to go back home, or I should have fought for my relationship? Please advise me.